SANIBONANI, MOLWENI, Njani, and welcome back to the channel. I am Kishali, I am your host, and today we speak to Miss Aamina Petersen again. And today we speak about the advantages of doing therapy, or just how therapy is beneficial. I think it was fitting to close the 16 days of activism and something hopeful and helpful in terms of journeying towards healing, which is really important. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yo, I don't think we should talk about this. Come on, why not?
The shame.
The negative connotation.
The stigma attached.
The embarrassment.
The humiliation.
The pain that comes with talking about sex.
Hey everyone, my name is Aamina Petersen. I am a lecturer and doctoral candidate at the University of the Western Cape. I am also a rape victim survivor. And yeah, you know, that's the little intro.
Thank you. So today we're dealing with therapy and the advantages of therapy, or rather just therapy like on its own. We can speak about the advantages and the benefits, but I think this is going to go up towards the end of the 16 days activism. And I'd like for people to have something to look forward to, because activism is great. But once you've suffered something like this, the trauma you've been through, I think a way forward is definitely recovery and choosing yourself. And one of those things is therapy. And my first question would be, how did you start going to therapy? Like, how did you get to the point of, okay, I'm going to go for therapy? And was it difficult to arrive at that decision?
So my story is it's a very difficult story leading up to therapy. So I was raped the first time when I was around 11, 12. At that time, I was too ashamed. I didn't know what happened. You know, when you're a child, you don't comprehend this is what's happening right now. It was up until my second rape, which was a gang rape. I thought we have to classify these things, but for purpose of understanding the extent of the trauma that I went through, it was a gang rape. It was 5 individuals. I was date raped. I was drugged, and it was it's a very unpleasant story. I often don't like to tell it because it makes me break down. But let me just point out that each individual case of rape has its difficulty. I think being raped is the most. When I told my one friend, he told me the Afrikaans word is verkrag, and it's literally taking away your power, you know. And to have 5 things, I don't think they deserve to be called people, but to have 5 things do that to me, it was difficult to live with myself afterwards. So I was raped in 2016. I started my master's in 2017. I was, I went for all the tests. I did everything I needed to do after the rape. I did it all by myself. I never told anybody. And eventually I got to the point where I just swept it under the rug. So this is pretty normal in most cases. My therapist told me it's pretty normal in some cases where most females decide to block off that it happened. So I had blocked it off for a good couple of months. And in fact, I blocked it off for the entire year of 2017. And the beginning of 2018, I just could not take it anymore. And I actually set a date to kill myself. And the date was the 20th of August. And that was the date that I was also going to be done submitting my master's. And that day I was going to kill myself. And regardless of that, I still continued praying and asking for advice from God, because there was nobody else I could possibly speak to. And it was my supervisor who had noticed that I was acting strangely. She had noticed I lost a lot of weight. I wasn't eating. I wasn't doing anything. She noticed, and she was the first person, actually the second person that I had told. And she told me, go and seek help. I'm a very stubborn person, by nature. So I wasn't ready to give into that vulnerability of therapy. I was like, you know what, I'm adamant. I'm just going to end my life. I don't want to do this anymore. And I prayed to God and I said, listen, give me a sign. Give me a sign that my reason for living is still going, it's still needed. And the first thing God gave me was a wonderful partner, great friends, and a support structure in that regard. It was at the end of 2018 when I went to the doctor, and the doctor actually, I started speaking to the doctor, and she made me a red flag. She put a little thing on my little dossier, and she said, you know, you need to go for therapy. She immediately called the therapist at UWC and said, this girl needs to come to you for therapy as soon as possible. So my first session was at the end of 2018, close to 2 years after having been raped. And luckily at UWC, the therapy at the center there is free for students. So I've been going for therapy because I'm still a student, and it's been free. But let me tell you, it was not an easy thing to step through those doors and to start speaking something that was such a difficult. It was very difficult to talk about it. And because I didn't trust people that much, it became difficult to because I was pushed from one therapist to another until I finally settled on a single therapist. I've been seeing her now for 3 years straight. And to tell your story every time. That's the thing about services being given to the public that you don't pay for. You don't have control over whether or not you are going to be seeing that one therapist for the duration of your healing process. So I went through about 3 therapists before I settled with one. And I mean, that means that I had to have told my story 3 times over. And that, it's tiring. Therapy is very, very tiring. You feel physically exhausted after having to tell your story and sitting there and crying and breaking down. You are exhausted after that. So, I started therapy at UWC. I'm still seeing the same therapist, and I probably will continue seeing her afterwards. She's become an integral part of my life. You know, the idea is to eventually stop seeing a therapist, but for now, she's top-notch. She's a great person.
That's cool. I think it's amazing that's amazing and also not great that we have to seek out such services, but also I think that of finding a therapist that suits you is really important. And also I've read quite a lot about how finding a therapist is like shopping for a boyfriend. You have to find someone who suits all your needs, kind of. And I don't think that people will speak about that a lot, or people are too scared to say they have to go from one therapist to another. But those things happen. It's in reality that these things happen a lot. We have to go from one therapist to another to find someone who is catered to us. So you've been in therapy for the last 3 years. How has it helped you? What benefit have you reaped from it so far?
So the thing about therapy, and I think it's very important to mention this from the get-go, it's not, I'm going to see somebody to fix me. I think there's this preconception that if you're going to a therapist, the therapist is going to sit there, listen to what you are saying and say, do A, B, and C, and then you'll definitely be okay. That is not what it is. It's the longest process to get to a point of even just being stable. So with my therapist, she managed to do a lot of it's something we call it's different forms of therapy that we did with one another. It's very I was very specific to the space I was in at the time, and the therapy changed as I moved into different parts of my healing. I can say that it has helped me gain confidence. It's definitely helped me have this ability to help others which is weird because I would be infuriated with what someone might tell me. And usually my response would be, my trauma response is usually just to lash out, you know. But with therapy, I've learned to control my emotions. I've learned to control my trauma responses. I've learned to pinpoint my trigger, like, you know, you have trigger points and certain smells, tastes, things that you wear, you know. It was an empowering experience to get to a point where I can now talk about what happened to me without breaking down. The thing about therapy is that your therapist works hand in hand with a multitude of other people. So there was a point where I needed to go on medication. So she sent me to a psychiatrist, and I didn't like the psychiatrist because I didn't say, you know, you needed that connection. And if I don't feel a connection with somebody, I automatically step away. I went on medication. My first set of medication did not sit well with me. You needed to change. You know, the second set did not sit well with me. I needed to change. The third set didn't sit well with me, and I stopped. I was like, I can't put my body through this anymore. Then she sent me to natural healing, which is also at UWFC, and we did. Oh, it was a lot of work. But here's the thing that is very important that I want to tell somebody that's considering going for therapy. When you step into a therapist's office and they ask you, what is it that you need from me? Be open and honest. For example, the doctor that I went to go and see natural healing, I told her that I was wearing a floral top the evening that I was raped, but it was a specific type of floral top, and I explained it to her in detail. And for one of our sessions in the morning, she had put that floral top on. She forgot about the fact that she had a session with me. She saw my name on a sheet and she immediately went to go and take it off. And she's walking around with like a little strapless top the entire day while she was doing my session. Because that was my trigger point. And I could identify it and I could tell her this is going to set me off. So I went for various forms of therapy. I was on different forms of medication. And that is the thing with healing. The first try isn't going to be the right try. Maybe the second try isn't going to be the right try. I think I went to about 3 psychiatrists until I found the proper one that I'm currently seeing. And that's just for medication purposes. And that's a cost on its own. I mean, we're going to get to that later on, but I mean, that's a cost on its own. And here's another thing that I think is very important to mention. If you come from a community where it's very, I'm Muslim, so I struggled a lot with this idea of whether or not I should go for therapy, whether or not I should be vocal about the fact that I'm going to therapy. And there was a very big part of me that felt ashamed, you know. I was also made to feel that way. I was made to feel like, oh, you don't believe in God, you know, you don't believe that God heals, you don't believe that, so we call God Allah in our religion. So that you don't believe that Allah will have your back, you know. And a lot of people told me, why don't you pray? You know, why don't you do this? Why don't you read the Quran? And I used to sit there and I used to be like, but nobody knows that I did that. Because I couldn't sleep, right? For the first few months after I'd been raped, I couldn't sleep. So I was up. Listen, I would crash after 3 days because that's just the exhaustion. But I mean, consecutive evenings, I would not sleep. And that's the only thing I did. So I still believed in God. I still believed that he would help me. And I asked for signs. And I believe this is for people who are struggling from a religious point of view. Sometimes God puts people on this earth to help you. So God is helping you through those people. God has given therapists, psychiatrists, the ability to assist. That does not mean that you're forsaking your faith if you are doing something to heal. And it's such an important concept because I struggled with that for such a long time. And once I accepted that, because I am a spiritual, religious person, once I accepted that, I found that my healing flowed. People's opinions no longer mattered to me because, listen, it's me, God, and that's it. God's putting people in my life for me to be able to heal. So why am I listening to all these extra voices that has no bearing on my life? So the one thing that's important about what helped me with therapy was the minute I detached myself from negativity, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Please note that when you're going through therapy, I pray that people who go through therapy don't go through this ugly part of therapy. You're going to get to a point where you become toxic to yourself. And you're going to have this toxic victim mentality. I had this toxic victim mentality where I just lashed out on everybody. I got tired of working on myself, so I just stopped. And that affected a lot of my relationships. It affected a lot of things until I started to actively work on that as well. So there's going to be ups and downs. But after a few years of therapy, you're going to feel grounded and you're going to be at peace. There will be bad days, but the bad days are not going to be there forever. And you are allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to have great days when you're in therapy. Don't ever think that because you're having a bad day, you fell off the wagon, you can't go for therapy anymore. Don't think that if you're having great days that you are healed completely. You will know when you found the light. I like to say that. I often have it as a mantra. You will find that when you'll know when you are fine, when you find the light. The light is a lot of things. It can be a lot of different things. And you can heal in small segments. But you are going to heal. This is not a defining factor in your life. So it's safe to say therapy has actually helped me, but it's important to let people know that it's not just the therapy, it's the work. You have to put in a lot of work. It's unfair. I know it's unfair to be told you're strong. Oh my God, you're so strong. You get that a lot. You hear people telling you that. Oh my God, you're so strong. I didn't ask to be strong.
Mm.
I did not ask to be strong. Pause. What I've gone through does not make me a stronger person. I had no other choice but to be strong. I wasn't given an opportunity, and I find it so difficult to hear those words. Be strong. You're so strong. I'm so proud of you. Why are you proud of me? Tell me. I'm doing 10 times more work to get to a piece of the level that you are at as a normal person. Normal person, right? I don't feel that I'm strong, but yet you are telling me that. Stop telling me that, But yeah, that therapy has helped, but it also comes with a lot of work. So, please do go for therapy if in the event you need to and you feel like you should. It does work. There are advantages to it.
Yeah, but before I get to that, I'm so glad you said that God and the other names for him have put people. I feel like that is so true. Like I have this beautiful grandmother who says, "Oh no, we'll just pray about it." But I feel like you can pray about stuff. You can go to the doctor and pray. You can pray for the doctor, people who are going to help you. You can pray for all of those things, the environment you're going into, to the doctor. And I'm so glad you said that, because yes, God gave those people, He created knowledge, He gave them the knowledge, He equipped them with stuff to help us. And how can we not just say, let's just pray only? I feel like pray and those things can work wonderfully together. You can't just one thing on its own. And I think an older generation is very geared towards, let's pray about it instead of let's do other things together to work on this particular problem. The cost, not just monetary value or going to therapy, but I think the expense of what you have to go through going to therapy every week or whatever it is, I think that must take some toll. I feel like it's at the expense of yourself, be it emotionally, physically. What costs are there involved with going to therapy?
Okay, so first and foremost, let's not ignore the fact that there is a heavy financial cost on therapy. I think I've spent thousands and thousands since I started. And that's not only on paying the fee. I'm not on medical aid. So if you're not on medical aid, let me tell you something. You have to find a way to have enough money to get better. How horrible is this, right? So my therapist, when I'd gone to her, when I had to go and see a psychiatrist for the first time, let me be very blunt with you about the cost implications. Per consultation, it's between 2,500 and 3,000, and that's for consultation alone, right? And thankfully, my therapist had managed to get me a discount for the first few sessions I'd gone for. That's the cost of just consultation with a psychiatrist. With a psychologist, you pay a separate fee. Like I said previously, I don't pay for my therapist because I've obviously, I'm still a student, but there's going to be a point where I have to start paying for that as well. When you see a psychiatrist and you have to go on medication, that's a separate cost. Because the first aid medication might not be the medication that works for you, you'll spend about between 1,000 and 2,000 Rand just for the medication. And if it doesn't help, you have to discard of it and you have to go for the second set of medication. So the cost financially is overbearing. This is the thing that I think stops people from actually going for help, is the cost implications. And I am infuriated at the fact that there are little to no effective, governmental resources for people who have gone through rapes to properly heal. There's nothing that helps, no assistance with medication. There's assistance with psychiatrists and psychologists. You really have to search for it. The backlog is extremely long. So that's another thing. So often, because you are in such a tight spot, you have to find the money to do it. And that's the cost implications about it. The physical and emotional toll that it takes on you. I think that's the worst. It's like, how can I explain this? It's an exhaustion that sleep doesn't satisfy. It's the type of exhaustion where you can't wait for it to end, but it never ends. The pain, the physical pain that comes with it, is a type of pain that if you have it, you can't take a pill for it. So you have to lay on your bed and you have to wait for it to pass. Literally, I cannot explain to people how many times I have gotten this pain unexplainable in my chest area. I can't take anything for it. And I just have to lay on my bed. I have to cry because there's no other way to release the pain. And I have to wait for it to pass. Sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's days. But what can you do, right? You have to fix something that other people broke. It's unfair. It's so unfair. It's, I don't know if my rapists are watching. I don't know if they are, but you know what? In all honesty, you are the worst of mankind. You are honestly the worst. And I am stronger. I am. Yes, I hate to say it sometimes, but I am stronger because of it. Shouldn't have to be, but I am. And I promise you, there will be a day the wheel turns. I am not going to come after them. I don't have the energy to do that. I can only help others. But I do believe that there will be a day in your life where God will give you what you deserve. It's not up to me anymore because I can't focus on them. I can't. So listen, the cost of having to, never mind the financial cost, that's so burdensome. But that physical and that emotional pain and that exhaustion that comes with it. Some days are hard. And some days are the hardest. But then you get those days where there's a light. And I promise you, it does get better. It will get better. If you're struggling, you spoke about earlier on about how you struggle to find a suitable therapist. What I did was when I came to psychiatrist, because I had a set therapist. When I came to psychiatrist, I made a physical list. And if I went into, so I had a list where it's divided into 3 parts, right? The first part of the list was the feeling I got when I walked into the office. And I think there was one psychiatrist that I had seen, and immediately when I walked into the office, they didn't beat the first three boxes, and I automatically walked out. I said, no, I'm not doing myself through this. And what I started to do with the psychiatrist that my therapist prescribed me or suggested that I go and see, I started to research. I did the clever thing of phoning before and asking to speak to them. I did research on what they offer and what I want to see them about. And so it is difficult, but it's not impossible. And I'm sorry that it's going to take so long for you to find a suitable person to speak to, but I promise you, when you find that person, your life, the healing process will become easier. I don't want you to give up because it's difficult. It is difficult, but it gets easier. It does get easier.
You mentioned not going after them, right? So I have this question always on my brain, on my mind, when I see a therapist. And even before I started the podcast last year, I said I wanted to take the month of July to decide finally whether or not I press charges against this man. It happened in England and in Ghana. And in my first year at UWC, I spoke to Dr. Albertus, Chesney Albertus, and I briefly told her, if I ever were to press charges, how would I go about that? And we spoke, and I can't remember what we said at the moment, but it's still 20 years next year, and it still plagues me. And there are times where I told my partner a few days ago, actually last week sometime, I said, sometimes I feel like I have the energy to go through all of that, starting the proceedings, going to court, and, being there, however long it takes, however many years it takes. And then I feel like I don't have the energy to do that. I don't have it in me to sit there year after year, month after month, listening to the same thing, having to retell my story. And then also the fact that I have a podcast dealing with sex on the interweb. They're going to twist that against me somehow. They're going to use all of these things. And it's and there are days where I think this man is living his best life, and here I am remembering the shit he's done, and I want to just verbally kill him. And then there are days where I'm like, oh no, but if I put him in jail, what about his son? His son then grows up without a dad, and there are so many black men who don't grow up with dads. And I think that's bullshit. And I wish I could put that thought to bed. And I hopefully soon, one day, hopefully next year, I will. But for now, I have this thing where, do I press charges or not? And it just...
Can I answer, just as a suggestion? And I don't think you should edit it out, because I think a lot of people sit with that question. Listen, with law, it's like this. It's all about procedure. So it's blunt questions. What were you wearing? How much did you have to drink? What were you smoking? Who were you with? All of those questions. It's never about just, you were raped. Let the law find its way and give you justice. This is the thing that stopped me as well. I often tell people, they often ask me, why don't you go for it? You studied law. Why don't you go and press charges? Because I know what I'll go through sitting on the stand. because I've read judgments, because I've seen what it does to victims. If you are lucky enough, and that's not even the proper word to use. If you've survived a rape, you become a victim survivor, right? So it's almost as if society recognizes you as the strong individual that has overcome this difficult experience. They consider you to be this hero, this heroine, right? But the justice system doesn't view you like that. The justice system views you as a witness to your own rape. You're not a victim in that regard. You're a witness, because you're going to be called up to that stand. You're going to be asked, what were you wearing? Why didn't you come out sooner? That's a question that I've often been told. When you tell people your story, I often tell them, I'm telling you my story not for you to pity me. I'm telling you my story not so that you can feel like you need to protect me. You can offer your opinions, but if you're going to say something wrong, I'm going to get up and walk away. I remember once I told this friend my story, and the first thing that came out of her mouth was, "Why didn't you go sooner?" And I'm sorry. Pause. When I was raped, I had blood everywhere. I woke up and I realized, shit, I was raped. Not even then had I told myself, I was raped. Everything was just. But there's that sense of initial shame. No matter how much they tell you it was not your fault, initial shame, that shock after you had been raped, that initial feeling of shame, it doesn't go away just because someone else is telling me you don't have to be ashamed. To be violated is a form of, it's the worst kind of torture, I think. So I understand why you are sitting with it and why you do not want to do it. I decided a very long time ago that, yes, there was that period of time where I wanted to go and report it, where I wanted there to be an investigation, all of that. There was a time. But you remember when you go through that and you see the energy that it takes from you to have that dilemma, that conversation with yourself, I decided to put all that energy into myself. And there are days where I think about it. My first rapist, he's married. I know the first rapist is, but he's married, he has children. And I often think to myself, his two children don't deserve it, right? You keep tabs on them. It's a form of punishment for yourself, and we need to stop doing that. We really need to stop doing it. So take all that energy and put it into yourself, because you are the most important person in the story, and they don't get to take it away from you. Not anymore. You need to make the conscious decision to say, I will not allow these people to take away my power. I will not. I'm never going to let that happen again. And you stand and you're loud and you're proud about what you are going to accomplish and how you are going to get there. I always say this, if a girl speaks about sex and if she dresses sensually and she morphs into her own sexual being, right? People often say, oh my God, you're such a slut. And like you get that from women as well, right? You're such a slut. They'll be like, no. I'm not a slut. You're just thinking like a rapist. Tell me, if you as a woman, and I'm just saying this in a broader spectrum, if as a woman you enjoy sex and you enjoy speaking about things that is passionate, that is erotic, if you enjoy morphing into a sexual goddess every now and then, why is it that you are pointed out as a possible, if anything should happen to that girl, she brought it on herself? You've heard that, right? You've heard that often. If anything should happen to that girl, she posted it like that on Instagram. She did this, she did that. But if a guy does it, it's that gender norms, it's that construction that you allow yourself to believe in So stop doing that to yourself. You deserve so much more. He's not worth it. Trust me, he's not.
Yeah. So we've established now that the road to healing and choosing yourself every day is really costly, not only in monetary, but physically and emotionally. And with the 16 days of gender-based violence awareness and creating all of those things, I want to ask you what you can tell people who like me, 20 years, struggling doing therapy, and others who maybe suffered other kinds of traumas, other kinds of violences in their lives. What can you tell them about like trying to motivate going to therapy? Because I feel like we sweep things a lot under the mat. Recovery, the road, the healing, the journey is so important. That's also kind of why I started the podcast, because we need to start healing as a country, continent, individuals, to have a better society. I think we need to journey towards healing, and that is really important in creating society that is like, open. Hey, go and seek help for yourself. What can we tell them?
So I first want to say that the 16 days of activism should be a 365-day thing. It should not be limited to 16 days. I despise that idea, but we do what we can, we take what we get, right? And we try to make it different. So I think in respect of people who have gone through what we have gone through, many years has passed, they're still struggling to go to therapy, they're still struggling to find the start of healing. Something very important that one of my psychiatrists had told me in the past was, I don't think he actually told it to me, I think I said it to him, and then he gave me something in return that I always carry with me. I said to him, you know what? I miss my inner child. I miss who she is. I miss that she laughed, that she sang, that she did all these little things. I miss her. But I think that when what happened to me happened, she retreated back and she caged herself in. And I don't know how to get to her anymore. I told him this, and he said to me, you know what? That right there is the reason why you keep on fighting. Because until she feels that it is safe enough for her to come out of her cage, you have not healed. And to heal does not mean that you are exactly the same person when you get out of that. To heal means that, I don't know if you've ever seen this meme, right? Or it's a picture of a bowl that broke, and the pieces were glued back together with little gold glue or something. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's monumental if you are healing this bowl. And it's not exactly the same. It broke. It was not exactly the same. Nothing that breaks is ever going to be the same again, right? Acknowledge that you were hurt, you were broken, you were weak for a moment. When you start gluing yourself back together again. And he said to me, you're not going to be the same person when you're done healing. Make peace with that. But that inner child, she's going to come out and she's going to start trusting you again. And that is why you are healing. So if anyone that is struggling with it, think back to your happiest memory. That was your inner child. She was playful. She wasn't afraid. She was relentless. She was fearless. I remember being the type of person that would, before life got ugly, I would be the girl that would take a blanket and lay on the field and watch the stars. I don't do that anymore, right? So until I can do, because that's one of my happiest memories. So until I can do that again and feel safe, that is when I know my inner child has gotten out of her cage and she's okay. And she trusts me again. So for people who are struggling to go for therapy, think about that happiest moment. And remember that you won't be the same. You won't. Trauma does something to you that alters your anatomy somehow. But once you find that gold glue and you start piecing yourself back together again, you become something even more beautiful. and even more treasured because you put the work in. It's difficult to start, but try your best to start. Even if it's a small thing, try your best to start. Don't give up. Oh, I know that we sit and we count the tablets and we do the research and we try to cut ourselves to see how deep it can go, but it's too sore. We think of everything, something that is profound. When you want to kill yourself, just remember it's not you that you want to kill. It's that ugly thing inside of you. So don't throw everything away because of one small thing. It's small. You're much bigger than that. You're worth it. So start putting time into you as a person. You're worth it. And there will be difficult days. But like I said, there's going to be beautiful days. And that's what we live for. So that's my advice.
I love it. Thank you very, very much.